If you like Kimuras, this video is for you. Now, obviously the Kimura is a powerful submission. It works great, but sometimes we can be going against someone who's big and strong, crazy powerful grip, and it's hard to finish. I'm going to show you two variations of different submissions that you can use from the Kimura if the Kimura fails. And I'm going to show you a couple dirty little tricks that you can use to make your Kimura work correctly. So with that, let's jump in. This first example is called the genie lock. I just learned this recently. Shout out to Mike Thompson, a local black belt who taught me this. I'm definitely implementing this into my tool belt. Had a lot of fun learning it. Let's dive into it. So as you can see in this example, I'm set up in the Kimura. My opponent is on his side and I'm straddling his head. Now let's just say that for whatever reason, I can't get my opponent's grip broken and I can't finish the Kimura. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the elbow pit of that outside arm and trap his wrist, almost like I'm hugging my elbow pit into that wrist of his, while at the same time my hand is aiming for really high up on his lats, very close to his armpit. Now my other hand is going to weave up and grab onto my upper bicep or my shoulder, very much like a rear naked choke. Pro tip, if you want to make this extra tight, make sure your hand that's grabbing on his lat is high enough to be hidden underneath your other elbow. If you're on the outside of your elbow, it'll probably still work, but if you really want to full send this thing and make it effective, get that hand high enough so that's underneath your elbow and into his armpit. Now from here, you're going to turn your ulna bone out. So you're either going to be using your ulna bone against his forearm or even the little notch on your wrist, that little bump on the outside of your wrist into his forearm. Now you're chopping down almost like a tricep extension with that hand while also applying rear naked choking pressure to his arm that's trapped inside. And you can see as we play the example all the way through, as I set this up, it really doesn't leave him any room to escape. Once his wrist is trapped, he's in a really bad spot. And once I get my hand up onto my upper bicep or shoulder, it's a done deal. There's not a lot he can do from there, especially once you start to apply that squeeze. I compare this pain to something that's similar to like accidentally touching a hot stove. You pull your hand away without even thinking about it because it's so intense. That's the way this tap is. It's such intense pain if you do it correctly that it's usually an instant tap. If you're not trying it yet, give it a shot. And I just want to take a second to give my sponsor, X Martial, a shout out. On the mats, you've got seconds to react and sometimes even less. You train for hours to move with precision. Your gear should keep up. X Martial makes high quality, high performance no-gi gear. The fit is clean and the material durable, breathable, and built for battle. One thing I can't stand about certain no-gi brands is how quickly the material falls apart and how quickly the designs wash away. Literally every single one of my rash guards that I own from X Martial has stood the test of time. I've been training jiu-jitsu for 9 years and I still have rash guards that look brand new. And since we're talking about the designs, they're original, they're unique, they help you look good. If you're gonna go compete and you don't feel you look your best, you think that's helping you in your performance, you wanna go out and feel good about the person that you've built. And no-gi attire definitely helps with that. So if you want to look as good as me and probably even better, get over to xmartial.com and grab yourself some gear. I know you'd be happy you did. Look good, feel sharp, roll hard. Let's get back to the video. This next one is a personal favorite of mine if the Kimura fails. Now, if you guys want to name it something, feel free to do so. I mean, I'm calling it a shoulder rip, a shoulder ripper, whatever. It works and it works well. So as we check out the example, you see I'm into the Kimura setup. I can't break my opponent's grip, so I grab my own wrist and I thread the needle and I'm pulling my hand through the V of his arm. Now that arm that I pull through goes flat across his back and I'm immediately stepping over, trapping his arm with my leg, as you can see here. Now next, I'm grabbing my gable grip and I am sitting backwards, almost like a trust fall. And as I fall, I'm locking up a triangle lock with my legs. Now there's a couple things happening here. I am deadlifting through his elbow. At the same time, I'm squeezing with my legs like a triangle. So this creates somewhat of a bicep slicer, but at the same time, it's also putting a little twisting pressure on his shoulder and pulling his arm away from his body in a very powerful way because you're using your deadlift muscles. So it hurts all over the place and it feels like your shoulder is being pulled out of its socket. So when you guys are trying this on each other, just be careful because it's really easy to hurt somebody with this one. There's a lot of power wrapped up into it. So as we watch the example all the way through, you can see that once I have my arm flat on his back and I step over, again, he's just like in the first one, in a bad spot. And then from there, when I sit back, there's nothing he can do to stop that momentum. And if my gable grip is obtained and I lock that triangle up behind his back, what can he do to defend this? He's really in a bad spot. It's very easy to set up and it's very powerful. So if you guys aren't using this one yet, highly recommend you try it, especially if you like Kimuras and you're dealing with a guy whose grip is just really strong. And last but certainly not least, let's talk about some dirty little details that you can use to make your Kimura actually work. As we check out this example, the first thing I like to do is I like to staple his arm. Now, I'm taking my leg that's on the same side of his face and I'm stapling his bottom arm to the mat. Now, I'm not just stapling, I'm being mean about this. I'm using pain as a distraction technique. And as you guys progress through your jiu-jitsu journey, you're going to see that this is something that you can do all over the place. I'm utilizing my knee and my shin to staple his bicep to the ground. Now, I don't know if you've ever had anybody put pressure on your bicep before, but if you put all your body weight through your shin on their bicep, it hurts and it takes their brain away from what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, which is the Kimura. Now, at the same time, that isn't always enough to get him to release his grip. But what the staple is doing is that when I pull up on his arms, his lower arm isn't coming with me, right? That's what makes that difficult. The arms come with you and it's harder to break the grip. You staple that bottom arm to the mat. When you rip up, it gives you an anchor. Now from here, where we get even more nasty and we're using even more pain, I'm gonna take the point of my other elbow, the elbow that's on the side of his back, and I'm going to put that right into his ribs. Now, I'm not just placing it there. I'm using my weight to drive my elbow directly into his ribs. This hurts. And again, it pulls his mind away from the Kimura. Now, you got to remember, you're also stapling his arm. So he's hurting in two other spots on his body. At this point, it's likely that he's trying to think of how to address the pain points that you're giving him. And usually what happens is by the time I drop my elbow in and I drop it enough, I get a jump response. And in that jump response is my opportunity to pull his grip apart and twist his hand towards his back. This is going to be a concept, like I said, you're going to see all over the place. If you've ever noticed, some high-level grapplers will use wrist locks in the same way. They'll use the pain from a wrist lock to create a jump reaction. And usually that opponent will pull away in an aggressive way and it creates an off-balancing moment, or it creates an opening for another attack the attacker can hit. So this is just a concept that I'm applying to the Kimura, but truthfully, this is something fun that you can do all over the place. So as we watch the example all the way through, you can see me setting this up. I staple the arm. I'm putting my elbow into his ribs and it becomes really uncomfortable. If he jumps, great, I'm full sending. If he doesn't jump, I'm still gonna send it because that bottom arm is stapled and it's gonna be easier to pull his arms apart. Now keep in mind, when you're pulling his arms apart, if you pull straight up and they don't come apart, that's fine. Don't give up there. Pull up, remove all the slack, and then begin to twist his arm towards his back. And sometimes that's enough to unravel the grip. So a couple tips for you guys that like the Kimura. I love Kimuras. They're super effective and they're all over the place. So if you guys have other submissions that you like to hit from this position, drop them in the comments because we're all learning from each other and that's the community we're building here. We're here to help. So I always appreciate you guys. With that, you know how we like to end them. Sometimes backwards, always forwards. I'll see you in the next one.